The Strange Case of a Blanket by Manoj. Some sadhu were on their way to a pilgrim town. Long was the way, and they avoided carrying items which were not extremely indispensable. They carried two blankets each, one to spread on the ground when they took rest, and to cover themselves with the other. Long was the way, and a spell of rain had made the weather worse. But they took all such hazards in their stride, and walked on through many a villages and towns, and sometimes through forests. It was an evening. They were walking along a river bank. The river was in spate. Probably some distant village had already been invaded by its water, and the current carried the booty, a chunk of a thatch, a piece of furniture, an umbrella, etc., etc. Among the pilgrims was a fat sadhu named Tima Baba. He clucked and regretted the fact that the umbrella did not float close enough to the shore for him to pick it up. But as he eyed the umbrella wistfully, something else, something more valuable, caught his sight. "Look, look, there goes a blanket!" he almost shouted. Indeed, but why only a blanket? The flood, like time, must be carrying several other things away too, commented a senior member of the group. Just as we are fond of possessing things, the time is fond of dispossessing us of them, commented another pilgrim. But this one appears to be quite a thick piece. Shouldn't we salvage it? Asked the fat sadhu. How can we? Asked a fellow traveler. The real question is, why should we? Don't we have two blankets each? Asked the senior sadhu. The fat one did not seem to hear them. His eyes were glued to the object floating away. He increased his pace to cope up with the speed of the current. Then he took his shoulder bag off and thrust it into the unwilling hands of a friend. "Hold this. I must fetch that blanket," he announced. "Fetch the blanket from this mad, mad flood? Are you mad?" buzzed several voices. "I can swim well. I shall be back with the blanket in a moment. It is too precious a thing to be ignored." The fat sadhu did not wait to hear anybody's opinion any longer. He took off his ochre robe and threw it on another companion and jumped into the river. He was no doubt a good swimmer. He soon managed to buffet through the whirling water and reached the object of his desire and tried to grab it. In the dusk his companions could not clearly see what was happening midstream, but it appeared to them that both the sadhu and the blanket were being carried away by the current. "What are you doing, Tima Baba? Have you got hold of the blanket?" asked a pilgrim. "I have, but I don't understand how the blanket too got hold of me. It is almost drowning me," complained Tima Baba. There was anxiety in his voice. "In that case, why don't you let go of the blanket?" his companions suggested loudly. "Your life is far more precious than the blanket." "Alas, I have left the blanket, but the blanket refuses to leave me," was the last cry of Tima Baba. There was silence thereafter. However, the keen-eyed among the pilgrims soon realized the mystery to their shock. What Tima Baba mistook for a blanket was in fact a bear. A landslide must have thrown it into the river. Tima Baba had become the victim of a desperate bear hug the moment he gave a tug at the beast in the hope of winning a blanket. Some insight to the story. Another version of this story, briefly narrated by Swami Vivekananda, speaks of the sadhu returning to reclaim his blanket, which he had by mistake left under a tree, and on which meanwhile a bear had lied down. Of the several allegorical elements in the story, the main one is the blanket as a symbol of unrequited greed. The passage to the pilgrim town stands for life's journey to its destination, and Tima Baba's attraction for a superfluous third blanket, symbolizing desire for the sake of desire, being the greatest hurdle in one's inner journey. End of today's story.